Okay, step two, taxable income. So in this clip, we're going to calculate taxable income. To start out our calculation, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring down our net operating income from step one. So notice, or here's our net operating income from step one, $12,104 in the first year. We're going to bring that down to start out our taxable income calculation. And then go ahead, you can bring down years 2 and 3, net operating income. Now, we have to make a few adjustments to net operating income. One is not good, okay? Adding back the reserves increases our taxable income. But two are potential tax benefits, and that's decreasing our taxable income by the interest that we paid on our mortgage, okay, less interest. And here's peer tax shelter, okay, because we actually paid interest to a lender. Okay, so those dollars actually went out of our pocket, but depreciation is called a peer tax shelter because we don't pay anybody depreciation. It's just a tax, break or tax benefit that we're allowed to take. So the two things that investors like to decrease or like to, subtract out of net operating income before they go to the taxable income, interest and depreciation. The other thing, adding back the reserve, that's not a benefit, okay? But the IRS requires us to add back the reserve if we take a reserve out above. And this is because there's potential abuse by claiming that, you have a very large reserve and you'd never have any, significant net operating income or taxable income if you're claiming to have such a big reserve. So there's a little potential there for mischief or false reporting. So the IRS says that we don't like the reserve idea. If you subtract it out as an operating expense above in calculating net operating income, you have to add it back in when you calculate taxable income. But we can do that. It's not a problem. So the next step is just to bring down your reserves and for each year, because we're going to add those back in. Okay, but here we go. Here's our benefit, one of our two big benefits in calculating taxable income. We're allowed to subtract out the interest that we paid on the mortgage for the year. So we made 12 payments on our mortgage, 12 debt service payments. Some of it's principal or amortization. Most of it, especially in the early years, is interest. That interest is deductible. So what we could do, okay, especially we have a little shortcut in this problem. We know what the total debt service was for the year, the annual debt service. We also know from our problem what the amount of amortization was for the year. Principal reduction on the mortgage was $600 in year one. Well, just take $11,373 minus $600, and guess what? That gives you $10,773. So that's the interest portion of our debt service in year one. You could also build an amortization table and add up the interest portions of each payment. That's another option too. For year two, all right, the debt service is the same, $11,373, but going back to one of our assumptions, the principal reduction was $663. So subtract out $663, and that gives you $10,710. And then the same thing for year three. The debt service minus the principal reduction of $733, that gives us $10,640. So interest, component not too difficult to calculate. The next item we get to deduct is depreciation. And this is IRS required, or allowed depreciation. We're using the straight line method. And remember that only the building or the improvements we can depreciate. And that's why we had to calculate the value of the land and the value of the improvements. Remember, from the $135,000 asking price or acquisition price, 85% represented improvement or building value, or the value of the building was $114,750. And our depreciation recovery period was 27.5 years. So if you take $114,750, just divide it by 27.5, that gives you $4,172.73. That's the amount of depreciation we can take each year as investors. And that's straight line depreciation. It doesn't change from year to year. It's the same. So what you can do is just plug in 4,172 for each year, 1, 2, and 3, and that's our depreciation deduction. So to calculate taxable income, again, we start out with NOI, we add back a reserve, if we took a reserve. We calculate our interest portion of our debt service, annual debt service. We subtract that, and we can subtract out depreciation each year. So that gives us taxable income. It's actually negative taxable income. And it's negative $2,142 for the first year, negative $1,453 for the second year, and negative $728 for the third year. So this means we're not going to be paying taxes on our income. Actually, we can shelter a little bit of income, possibly, potentially. So, this might look bad seeing these negative signs as taxable income, but as investors, this is a wonderful thing, okay? It means you're not paying taxes. And this is actually quite common in lots of real estate investments. You might not have taxable income in the early years of your real estate investment. One is because of your depreciation that you can take. Number two, you can deduct your interest portion of your debt service. And remember, in the early years of your mortgage, your first year of your mortgage, your interest expense is the highest. Notice in year 3, it's a little bit lower at $10,640. So the interest portion of your debt service is going down each year. But in the early years, it's your highest. It's a big, it's a big shelter, okay? And it's, primarily the reason why we have negative taxable income in years 1, 2, and 3. Although you can see in year 3, it gets pretty close to becoming close to zero or positive. So that's taxable income. Now let's go on to step 3, after-tax cash flow, because it is a fairly quick step. We can do it in this clip. But to calculate your after-tax cash flow, what you do is you bring down your before-tax cash flow from step 1. Okay, bring it down for years 1, 2, and 3. And you either add or subtract your tax impact for years 1, 2, and 3. And your tax impact is calculated by taking your income tax rate. And remember, from our assumptions, our income tax rate was 28%. Okay, so take 28% times your taxable income and then change the sign, and that's your tax impact. So 28% of $2,142.05, it's actually negative $599, but change the sign to positive, and that's your tax impact. The same thing for year 2. We had negative $1,453 times 28%, change the sign, that's $407.08. And then finally for year 3, the same thing, negative $728 times 28%, that's, change the sign, that's $203.92. If we had positive taxable income, we would be subtracting out. The tax impact would be a minus in that case. But remember, in this case, we had negative taxable income, so our tax impact is going to be positive. And notice we're going to add it to our before-tax cash flow, and our after-tax cash flow is actually higher than our before-tax cash flow in all 3 years. But again, that was because of our negative taxable income, which was a result of our insurance and our depreciation deductions from our net operating income. So we've made it all the way down to after-tax cash flow. So the after-tax cash flows, they are positive for each year. Sometimes in real estate investments, especially the early years, it could be a negative. But even though we had negative taxable income, we still had positive after-tax cash flow. In fact, again, the after-tax cash flow was higher than the before-tax cash flow because we actually didn't pay taxes on our taxable income, but we actually could shelter some other passive income from other investments, and that would result in a benefit in after-tax cash flow being higher than before-tax cash flow. All right, well, I'll stop here and we'll go on to steps 4 and 5. And in step 4 and 5, we're going to talk about the sale or the reversion of the property.